OK, well, let me make a statement now. I'm Piers Morgan. I am a man. I identify as a male. I would hope that was reasonably clear from my appearance, but a growing number of businesses think that we should be displaying our pronouns in email signatures or even name badges to avoid the possibility of someone looking at me, for example, and thinking, I'm not sure what he is if he doesn't have a little name bag, which I'm putting on myself here now, and I'll explain why in a moment. Let me just make sure I don't hit myself with this pin. Here we go. There we go. So, Halifax, one of the biggest British banks, is asking staff to wear pronoun badges. They tweeted, pronouns matter, hashtag, it's a people thing. So far, so virtue signalling and a welcome step, of course, for inclusivity. Or was it just bonkers? Well, in just a moment, I'll be speaking to comedian James Barr, who uses the pronouns he, him, his, presumably because he's a bloke, and Howard from Halifax, who's wearing also pronouns he, him, his, but I don't think you really think you ought to, do you, Howard? Now, Howard, you might recognise, because he was Mr. Halifax. He used to be literally the guy doing the ads for the bank. Take a look.
Maybe I'm a banker who's completely obsessed. Got a little something that's bound to impress. This current account pays a higher amount of extraordinary interest.
OK, well, I'm with Howard. Howard, great to see you. And comedian James Barr is with me, as I mentioned. James, let me start with you. Here's the problem I have with what Halifax did. If you want to do this badge thing, and I've been to conferences where people wear badges, if you want to do it, fine. The problem I have with what Halifax did is whoever runs their Twitter account not only tweeted a load of virtue signalling nonsense around it, but also started telling anyone who was objecting, well, then you can take your custom elsewhere, which I thought was a startling piece of absurd, over-the-top virtue signalling for the Twitter account of a British bank. Just stick to handling our money. What's the matter with you all? Your view?
Well, let me first of all just say the whole country was really hoping that you would get that whole pin thing wrong just now, but I'm glad that you are okay.
It took me a while, actually, and I didn't actually pin myself. I'll tell you why my pin says in a moment.
It's hottest, right, okay,
yeah,
cool.
Hot,
and
hottest, and hot, hotter, hottest, and my preferred pronouns. Now, are you prepared to call me by my preferred pronouns? James, for the purposes of this
called
interview...
you ugly since wearing those, or do you feel happy now that you are identifying correctly?
I think if we're going to go in down the road of any pronouns you like, I would like you, now in this interview, to keep calling me hot, hotter or hottest. Do you think that's reasonable?
I disagree, but I'm very happy to call you by those because I respect your pronouns, as Halifax do with their customers.
But you don't actually think I am hot, do you? So why would you?
Well, I mean, some might, but I don't. But that's how you want to identify, so that's how I now see you, Piers. And I think
that's why I think the whole thing is ridiculous and getting more ridiculous. And it's not about you can't do it. If you want to do it, fine. But when I see a bank's Twitter account threatening customers and telling them to leave if they don't like it, I'm like,
I think the customers were threatening the bank and suggesting that they thought it was awful, and so they replied with a clapback, which is right, saying that if you disagree, you can close your account. I think that's brilliant. That's exactly what we need from our allies and people in this community.
They're not
outside
allies.
Standing by their values.
They're woke, virtue signalling imbeciles. Why do you, who's clearly a man, I presume, why do you need to have a badge? Well, why do you need to have a badge saying he, him?
Because it shows people that I am inclusive and that I'm welcoming other people
inclusive
to feel
who?
safe. It's not...
You're just a bloke.
Well, people that don't identify as he, him, or she, her, or anyone, to be honest. It just... Look, you say, go woke, go broke. I say, if it ain't woke, fix it. Like, we need to be telling people that they are safe in our company.
You don't need to be telling men that they are he, him. They know that. They're men.
I mean, this argument is so boring. I'm so bored of having this conversation.
Well, stop companies doing it then.
No, companies need to do it.
No,
More companies should do it.
Let me bring in Howard. Howard, look, James is entitled to his opinion, and this show's uncensored. You can have all sorts of opinions, and there'll be lots of people that agree with him. You used to be the front man for the Halifax Bank. Yes. When you saw what they did here, what did you think?
Well, I've got to be honest, I was a little bit saddened by it, to be honest with you, Piers, because when I first heard of this message coming out where they were saying that, they were changing certain parts of the organisation, and that if you weren't happy with it, you could close your account, I felt quite sad about that because Halifax has always put its customers first, and rightly so. And anything that detracts from that, I think, is just wrong. We prided ourselves in customer service. We positioned ourselves as the country's people's bank. And rightly so, because we had great accounts and we considered ourselves as a family and we wanted to bring our customers in as a family. So I thought this thing was really bizarre, and I think it's just totally unnecessary.
And we're seeing so many companies now getting into this virtue signalling about these kind of issues and sort of bullying people into going along with it. You know, sort of freedom of speech and your right not to do this kind of thing. You're immediately condemned as some kind of bigot if you don't wear your pronoun badge or you don't do this or you don't do that. I really resent that.
Well, I don't think that's right. I think, because when you start individualising people, that's when you have a problem. I just think that people need to take a common sense look at this. Obviously, from Halifax point of view, if they want to make changes, that's fine. But I think that they've sort of, they've sort of just missed the boat a little bit on this one, because their focus should be on their customers. We all know that the customers of your organisation are your lifeblood. So, to me, I just find it really, really bizarre that they're being forced to do that. I think that I read somewhere where they said that there was a choice. I would have to say that if I was still working for Halifax, I wouldn't have a badge with pronouns. I would have my name on it, but I don't think I would choose to have, to specify a pronoun. That would just be simply my choice.
Right.
Because, and the funny thing about it is a lot of people really don't really take notice of name badges. I mean, when you go to the branches, our customers just want to make sure that we're looking after their banking
That's
needs.
all I care about.
And that's
Let me bring
important
James back in at the end. I mean, James, there's anything that Howard just said. He was the face of Halifax. Has anything he said made you pause for thought?
No, because to be honest, and without being rude, Howard hasn't been the face of Halifax for over 10 years and is quite frankly irrelevant in this conversation. As well as that, I mean, gay marriage wasn't even legal when Howard was working for Halifax.
What's gay marriage got to do with it?
No, I don't think it really matters at all.
What does gay marriage have to do with it?
I'm just saying that the world is in a very different place, and this is all about the customers.
Yeah, but what does gay marriage... Sorry, I mean, I supported gay marriage, but what the hell's that got to do with wearing badges saying he and him when you're a bloke?
The world is in a very different place to this conversation.
Yeah, but it's not, James. You see, your world is, and it's a very small world, actually, and the vast majority of people in this country do not agree with you. It might be a startling shock to your system, but not everybody...
I would like to ask you this. Why is this so offensive to you? How is this affecting you?
I find it offensive when a British bank starts telling people on Twitter, you can just sod off if you don't want to wear the pronoun badges.
I think more banks will follow suit, and actually people have to start putting their money under their mattresses again. Because
well, actually, what people will do, they'll switch to other banks. Because when companies go woke like this, they normally go broke very quickly. You know that, I know that.
Look,
so you think you speak for the majority. Actually, you don't. But James, you don't speak for the majority. I would say you speak for less than 20% of the country. That you talk.
Well, I
the
would say
wokies
that
talk like they run the world.
Doing an amazing thing by thinking about that 1% of the country that don't feel safe to walk out of their front door, and they are telling their customers.
No one's going to feel safer wearing a badge saying him, he. Trust me, nobody. Nobody in the world. If I would feel less safe.
Well, as I said earlier, do you feel
when I walk
safe
around with my badge
hot?
saying hot, hotter, hottest, I'm going to feel seriously under threat of all the
Isn't
people,
this so fun,
male
just
and
three
female,
lads chatting about
stampeding
inclusion
towards me because I'm so hot.
For trans people and non-binary people that aren't in the conversation, isn't this just wonderful? Like
Actually, I don't think there's any conversation that takes place at all these days without trans people being mentioned. So they're in every conversation.
Well, you know what? That's a very good point. And they just want a boring life, Pierce. They don't
actually,
want to
most
talk
trans
about
people I know do, and they actually have far more common sense, and they think this kind of thing is ridiculous. Most trans people I know.
That's not every single trans person. And at
it's
least
the
they know
woke
that Halifax is
activist
a welcoming
element
space
who are
for them.
destroying lives for trans people by making these stupid virtue signalling things all the time. All trans people want is to have fairness and equality. They don't need a badge telling them what they are.
And it's not the bank that's causing that trauma. It's interviews and conversations and debates just like this. Trans people's lives are not up for debate. As I said, they want a boring life like you and me and possibly unemployed Howard.
My life isn't remotely boring, James. And actually yours isn't. You're a funny guy. You're a good comedian, so I'll give you that. But it's a good debate. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. We're uncensored. We like all views. Howard, great to see you.
Thank you.
And you were the face of Halifax, and for me, you always will be.
Thank you so much. It's very kind.
Good to see you.